well, many probably didn't expect it. It's not the norm for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but they're winless. They're 0-3 through their first 3 games, through this first quarter of the season. The Steelers haven't been playing winning football. They haven't been meeting their standard. The standard has been not the standard of winning so far throughout the season. And no matter how you slice it or what went on, it's not been good enough. But oddly enough, the Steelers aren't acting like an 0-3 team. They're not acting like a winless team. They're not acting like a team that is out of the race this year, or won't be winning a championship this year, or is building to the future. No. The Pittsburgh Steelers are acting like an aggressive team trying to win now and fix things for now. And some would wonder why. Well, I'm trying to make some sense of it. But regardless, I'd like to hear from you guys as well. This is a Steelers live chat edition of Mic Drop here on Pittsburgh Sports Live. I am your host, Mike Asti, and I'm coming at you thanks to Beaver County Auto behind me, thanks to the signs behind me, and SteelersNow.com. And the Pittsburgh Steelers are 0-3. Okay, I thought at least they would win last week in San Francisco. I know it's on the road. I know it's West Coast, but East to West is much better odds than West to East based on time difference throughout NFL history. And they get 5 turnovers in the game. They force 5 turnovers, something that didn't happen hardly ever last year. The year before, this team could not force turnovers. That was part of the problem. They forced 5 in that game. They only capitalized with 6 points off the first 4 in that first half. Don't really capitalize anywhere near enough and squander those turnovers and end up losing the game, a game they should have won. A game that they lost much more than the Niners won, if you look at how that game went, and even if you look at San Francisco and what they did against teams that aren't that good. They haven't beat anybody good still. The Steelers are 0-3 and hadn't played anybody good prior. They're the UCF of the NFL right now, and I touched on that in a past show. And you can chalk up, okay, no one expected them to beat the Patriots or nobody with a sound mind. I certainly didn't. Raising a banner, Tom Brady, greatest coach, greatest quarterback. They now have Josh Gordon, even though that was before AB. He wasn't on the team last year, or not mostly on the team last year for the Patriots, certainly not in the playoffs. He was there, catching passes and touchdowns. And the Patriots just ran up and down on the Steelers and shellacked the Steelers. But, okay, the Steelers' defense wasn't ready. They aren't as good. Seattle, like the Niners, they should have won that game too. I mean, that's a game where, yeah, there was controversy on the overturn on the pass interference, and that call does suck, and I hate that rule in the NFL. I would say that for anybody. But the defense didn't play well enough. They let Russell Wilson pick him apart. But he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's a Super Bowl championship-level quarterback. I think he's underrated so far from what he's done with who he has in his career. And they lost that game. But weirdly enough, during the losses, they would basically brush their shoulders off, what you want as a veteran team, but general manager Kevin Colbert, who usually is pretty conservative, ends up making moves for now. The defense couldn't stop anybody. The defense couldn't force turnovers until the Niners game. The defense had their issues the last couple of years, and despite all the moves they made in the offseason that I thought would make the defense better, bringing in Steven Nelson, the draft, trading up for Devin Bush, figuring he'd replace Ryan Shazier. He's had his hiccups and his bumps in the road so far in his rookie season, but no one's given up on him. Troy Polamalu struggled too in his rookie season. But the point of it is, they trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick. They trade to make a move for now, not the future, despite being 0-3, despite losing week after week, and despite losing, more importantly, your Hall of Fame quarterback, your veteran, your starter in Ben Roethlisberger, who many of you might be happy is gone, as that's crazy enough, and I touched on that in a past show as well, that you can find on the channel and SteelersNow.com. You'll miss him soon as the season progresses. And despite all the hope in Mason Rudolph, and I liked him too in training camp in the preseason, he was very, very inexperienced, and you're going to see the maturation process, and you're going to see the inexperience costing them this season, which you saw against San Francisco. Prior to those 2 touchdown passes, those 2 big plays, there was a lot of choppy water. And that game had a lot of errors from him, based on his inexperience. You're going to have that. But that didn't stop them from trading a first-round pick for Minkah Fitzpatrick. A guy who wanted the hell out of Miami, which I love South Beach, but I could see wanting off the football team. But not often do you want out of Miami to get to Pittsburgh. I would never want to leave South Beach for Pittsburgh, despite, being from here. But he wanted the hell out of Miami. He wanted to be on a winning team with a winning culture. He thought Pittsburgh was that team. He was excited when he got traded to Pittsburgh, despite being 0-2 at the time. And he thought he would help the team. Many thought he would help the team. I kind of even made sense of it in my last show here for SteelersNow.com in terms of okay, he's young, he's not. It's a first-round pick that does suck, but you have control of him for several years. He's on a rookie deal that's not going to hurt the cap, and it's like your first-round pick for next season because he's a young player, an impact player, as Kevin Colbert said, and you can hear all this on the last show. I won't go into it much further, but he's a guy that can be a stud, that can change the complexion of a game. He was high level in college, winning national titles at Alabama, and then was the number 11 overall pick for the Dolphins in 2018. So they had to get something for him, of course, and they got a first-round pick. But yes, you hate to give up a first-round pick, but one of your needs that you would be using that first-round pick for is not going to be quarterback because you have Mason Rudolph. It's not going to be running back probably, or even if it is, you can find another one that's not a position that's hard to find a guy. It's not going to be a receiver. It's going to be the secondary. It's going to be defense. It's not going to be linebacker again. So he ends up feeling the need that you would draft for anyway. And you Steelers couldn't draft in the secondary much to save their life in past years. So why not go get a guy that you already know is proven? You have one more year with him, learning your system, and he's still young. You have years of control. It's a rookie deal. Okay, I made sense of the Minkah Fitzpatrick trade, even though you're giving up a first-round pick on a team that's winless through the first quarter. But then you see another trade for the Steelers, even after the Niners game. They see McDonald go down. He had the chemistry with Mason Rudolph, so that really, really sucks. But they see McDonald go down, and they trade for some security, bringing in Vannon, a tight end, out of Seattle. Now, Grimble goes in IR, not Vance McDonald, who may even play on Monday, but he's not going to be out for the season. He's not going to be out long term. At least that's what Tomlin's telling us. So they trade for Vannon, who had his best year last year, but certainly, 29 catches, 200 some yards. Nothing to write home about. He was a backup. But to add some depth to the position that they were struggling mightily with, even with Vance McDonald, who was the only guy that had really any chemistry with anybody, whether it be Benner or Mason Rudolph. And we get that it's also the Bengals coming up, which death taxes in the Steelers beating the Bengals in must-win games, whether it be the regular season or the playoffs. And a lot of the cast of characters, Vontaze Burfict, Pac-Man, they're no longer there, so the rivalry loses some luster. But that should be a win at home on Monday Night Football. They lose that, you really got some problems. You really need to clean house then. See what they do then, the uber-aggressive Kevin Colbert. But the point of it is, this is a general manager that's never aggressive. He's very, very conservative all the time. It's been 10 years since he traded up for somebody. This is not how the Steelers normally do it, regardless of how the year's going to go. But despite losing Big Ben, despite losing game after game, and despite having similar weaknesses and similar problems on this team that they've had the last few years still, and the running game not going anywhere, James Conner actually seems to be regressing. They get aggressive and they make moves to help the now. So what do you think of that? Why do you think that is? Why is Kevin Colbert aggressive now? Is it leading to maybe it's the end of his career, meaning he knows the writing is on the wall, or he wants to have this be the beginning of the end, meaning he doesn't want to be the GM of the Steelers for the next 10 years, meaning he already knew that going in, meaning he knew his window was short. He knew the leash was there. He knew the ownership wasn't going to put up with too much longer of this. And we know, and I've said this before, The Rooney family does not fire head coaches. They don't like to fire anyone in management, and they haven't done so in their history. But maybe he knew something we didn't in terms of how long of a leash he'd have, or the future of him, and kind of what he wants with his family. He's a grandfather now. I know his daughter and her kids. I mean, they're here. They're entrenched to being here, but maybe he wants to try something new, a challenge with some other team. They're not from Pittsburgh. Maybe he wants to go back to Canada. Who knows? Maybe he feels that pressure. But he's getting aggressive, and he's getting in win-now mode for a team that's winless and losing player after player and just not getting it done. So you figure that you lose your starter, you're not winning. You figure this year wouldn't be a championship season, wouldn't be a Super Bowl year, wouldn't be a division title year, may not even be a playoff year, despite the landscape of the league. And I know you want to get in there because you missed last year and you want to kind of prove that drama is behind you and you're now better off without it. But it's just not like Kevin Colbert. He's not aggressive, hasn't been aggressive, but aggressive this year, despite the losing, despite this team not getting it done. And I don't know if it's because of the AB drama that maybe made him crazier or maybe change his personality or what went on. But he's been more aggressive. So I see you guys are watching this one, and usually we have chatters out there, so I don't know if any of the normal cast of characters are out there right now still viewing this program. This was later than I wanted because of technical difficulties, so that maybe kind of ruined things. But regardless, do you like Kevin Colbert being aggressive? Do you like these moves? And can this season be saved? Yes, it's 0-3. Yes, that's not good. And yes, the history of the league, 0-3 doesn't lead to the playoffs. I get it. 0-2 doesn't even lead to the playoffs. And it shouldn't have been 0-3, but it is 0-3. Despite the 5 turnovers, they're 0-3. That's reality. But in all honesty, and I do see some of you here now in terms of, yeah, we got a lot of Go Steelers, Steelers Nation, but I want to hear your answers and your support of this. That you got the Bengals coming up. You have the Ravens, who with Lamar Jackson look damn good. The running game looks damn good. He looks better than I thought he'd be in his second season in terms of he's more accurate than he was last year, and that was what I thought the problem would be. Defensively, they're not as good as they've been in past years, but they're still pretty good. They're probably the class of the division are the Ravens. The Browns they're getting humbled a little bit. They're losing more than they would think, but they're still playing better than the Steelers. They're still got a win on the board at least. And there's talent there. There's big plays there. Baker, he's still getting it done in a way. OBJ is there, wearing a watch, but he still can take the top off the defense. And a Steelers secondary that'll have trouble with him. And then again, the Bengals aren't that good. We look at the landscape too. You can add in the landscape. But just sticking to the division, they're still going to get wins over those teams. They're certainly not going to be winless. They play the NFC West, and they didn't beat San Fran as they should have, but the Rams probably will be a loss. That's one of the best teams in football. They just were in the Super Bowl. Have already lost to Seattle. But you're going to play Arizona, too, and you're figuring that's a win. Point of it is the Jets are an awful team. They're dealing with tons of injuries. Le'Veon Bell might be there. He's playing well. That'll be some drama for the game. It's the end of the year, though. Maybe he'll sit out because they're out of it. And Sam Darnold going through mono. Who knows what disease he'll have at that point and what will be going on with him when that game is played at the end of the year. And how that team will be and the health of that team. But regardless, there are bad teams on the schedule. There are winnable games on the schedule. And the division games are always close. They're going to win some of those. They're going to lose some too, but those could all be split. So the schedule gets easier. They are making moves for now, whether you agree with it or not. And I see some you guys, some agree, some don't. You guys are kind of split on that. But they still have added Minkah Fitzpatrick, who already proved to have an impact in that San Francisco game. He already caused a turnover, even though you could argue whether or not that you have a first-round pick for him. Again, I say that he becomes your first-round pick next year, so I don't have a problem with it. But I could hear the argument either way. And let's just put it this way. Cam Hayward, a leader of this team, he's not panicking. Some criticize that through Twitter. oh, I want this team to panic. I want them to realize this issue. Well, I'm sure they do, but they're not going to panic because there are veterans there who are going to bring in the young guys like Juju and James Conner to realize what's really going on. They're still a very, very talented team that can still click on all cylinders, especially offensively. They got to get the running game moving with James Conner. If it does not, they're going to have big problems, especially with a rookie and a young, inexperienced quarterback in Mason Rudolph. But Cam Hayward's not panicking. He told us on Pittsburgh Sports Live, check the channel, it's there in the Steelers Now section as well as on SteelersNow.com. He's not panicking because there are veterans there that aren't going to let this team panic. And most importantly, and we'll see what you guys think on this too, James Conner's a big deal. I mean, I tweeted this, that he's a nice guy. It's a great story, but eventually you got to criticize him. He's not immune to it. And that is the truth. I mean, a bad fumble in that game. He got hurt last year, had bad fumbles in those games last year that cost them some victories. And the yards were there last year, above expectation with 900-plus yards. You figure it would have been 1,000 if he was healthy, but he hasn't been healthy. That's also a problem. And this year, the yards haven't even been there. The running game just hasn't been good. That needs to turn around. So James Conner is a big deal. That needs to turn around, or else the passing game is going to just have a problem. They need to find that number two. They weren't getting it done with Moncrief. We'll see now what happens with James Washington and company. I think he's the right guy. There's chemistry with him and Rudolph. But that needs to still get going. Juju needs to get going even more. And all of this maybe leads back to Conner first because you need to be versatile on offense. You need to be balanced, and they haven't been. Defensively, they need to be better. Minka Fitzpatrick helps that, though. T.J. Watt, Devin Bush needs to be better, but he's still a rookie. It's okay. They need to be better across the board, but there is signs of improvement based on that San Francisco game. Again, they should have won, causing 5 turnovers. But you need to capitalize off of those. Only 6 points off those first 4 in the first half. Unacceptable. But they're not panicking, are you? Because it's 0-3 is reality, despite an easier schedule, despite the talent could turn it around, despite you figure things are going to click and eventually turn around with that kind of talent. And despite the fact that they're getting aggressive and making moves for now isn't good. Now they're not meeting the standard. Now needs improved, and now they need to get some wins. So, is this season already lost? Cody Sykes, what happens if Steelers lose Monday night? Could OC and DC be fired? Well, look, I'll make this clear, and I saw some colleagues already saying it. If the Steelers lose Monday night, and you got to preface that as a big if. Tomlin was keeping it real in terms of realizing that game's a big deal and respecting his opponent. But I'm not the coach of this team. I don't got to say what Tomlin's saying. I don't got to give you coach speak. Okay? I'm not respecting the opponent. The Bengals suck. The Bengals are dealing with injuries. A.J. Green's not going to play. He's the best player on the team. Andy Dalton's overrated and sucks. Maybe properly rated, but he's not good. He's not somebody that you want to rely your franchise on, especially without A.J. Green. And they're a shell of their former selves defensively. They got a new coach, it's a new era, but that Bengals team sucks. They're the worst team in the division. You figure they're going to be the worst team in the division when the season's over. You're at home. It's a primetime game. It's Monday Night Football. So the whole football world is going to be eyes on you. And it's a must-win. Not only because you're 0-3 and you should have beat the Niners with their 5 turnovers, then you should have beat Seattle despite some controversy, but you're letting Russell Wilson march up and down the field and you couldn't take advantage and you lose by 2. Okay, you give Brady and Belichick the win, but you're 0-3 regardless. So that, of course, makes you desperate, and you know that going in, but you know you're way better on paper. You're more talented. You're a smarter team. You always are than the Bengals. And you're much better than the Bengals because, again, the Bengals suck. But the offense hasn't been what it's supposed to be. Okay, I figured the offense would click and eventually move with Big Ben or Mason Rudolph. You would see eventually the offense solidified. The running game hasn't been there. There hasn't been a number 2. The offense has not been good enough despite a few big plays. It hasn't been good enough. The defense, despite moves in the offseason, hasn't been good enough. And then even moves midseason. And we'll see now with Vanett there as a tight end because that was necessary in terms of replacing a tight end with Grimble now out and McDonald hurt. But, and this is a key but, again, the Bengals suck. They're one of the worst teams in football with A.J. Green hurt, their best player. So if the Steelers would lose Monday Night Football, I don't care how. It could be controversial. There could be a myriad of turnovers. We could have injuries. We could have somehow the Trump impeachment breaks into the game and causes it to pause, and that throws everybody off. You could have the lights off, lights flicker off, like in the Super Bowl a few years ago between the Niners and Ravens. You could have Sting coming down from the rafters, okay? Doesn't matter. They got to win. And if the Steelers don't win, I don't think the offensive coordinator would be fired because he's still relatively new in the tenure, and because you feel like with that kind of talent and who they lost with AB and Bell, and now Bell gone 2 years, AB gone 1 year, you got to almost maybe give him a mulligan, especially with a inexperienced quarterback and Mason Rudolph there learning the offense. There's hope and promise and confidence with him, but he still is inexperienced. It is still only going to be his second start in the regular season in his career. So you maybe give him a mulligan for that. I would not go crazy on firing an offensive coordinator. And we all know Tomlin's not going to be fired, certainly not mid-season. The Steelers franchise and the Rooney family does not fire head coaches. They just gave him an extension in the offseason, so that's not going to happen. Maybe he would choose to walk away, or maybe there would be a behind-the-closed-doors meeting with a mutual parting ways, but it wouldn't be a firing, and it wouldn't happen mid-season. They're not going to do that. They're too classy of an organization to do that. And he's been very, very successful with a championship, with division titles, with a high win percentage. It's not Belichick, but it's been very successful, even though the Super Bowl was 10 years ago. So Tomlin's not going to be fired, like it or not. And that does lead you then to Keith Butler, the defensive coordinator. So that kind of, Cody, that might be where I would go. I would have fired Keith Butler last year. I might have fired Keith Butler a couple years ago because I could blame him for the divisional playoff loss at home against Jacksonville 2 years ago when Blake Bortles marched up and down the field. That was more his fault than any of that talent on offense because they did score points. People forget. So I would fire Keith Butler. They should have fired Keith Butler already. He's been living on house money. He's been living on borrowed time for some reason. They had Todd Haley be the scapegoat, and many of you hated him. And, yeah, there was reasons that were off the field that were a little ridiculous. You can't have him and his quarterback having a war. Okay, he's gone. But they used him as a scapegoat when it should have been Keith Butler. Keith Butler's defense was performing way worse than Todd Haley's offense any of those years. And the defense, despite all the offseason moves, despite even adding Minkah Fitzpatrick, has not overall improved. So you can't just hang on Ryan Shazier's injury. There's plenty of time now for that to improve. There's plenty of time that he should have got something better for that defense. I don't know if it's scheme, I don't know what it is, but somebody got to take the blame. And that somebody is going to be Keith Butler. So at the end of the year, if this team misses the playoffs and the defense does not improve, or really even if it's the defense's fault in general, whatever the result may be, Keith Butler would be the guy to go. He would be the scapegoat. Now, he'd be the first scapegoat between him, the OC, and Tomlin. And that's how it should be based on what's gone on and who really should have already been blamed. I don't think it'll happen mid-season, even after a Bengals loss and you're 0-4 and you lose the first quarter. You lose to a horrible Bengals team at home on primetime. I still don't think they do it. That's just not the Steelers. But I would. I would fire Keith Butler right away if they lose Monday Night Football. If they lose to the Bengals on Monday Night Football, as bad as that team is, and they score enough points without A.J. Green and Andy Dalton, your quarterback, to beat the Steelers with 10 first-round draft picks on your defense, Joe Hayden now healthy, Cam Hayward a stud, Devin Bush you're trading up to get him even though he's a rookie. Tuitt stepped up. T.J. Watt is there, dominating. He's playing well. You're forcing 5 turnovers even though you lose. Yes, the offense should have capitalized more with only 6 points off those first 4 in the first half, and yes, that's part of it. And I'm not saying this is necessarily the defense's entire fault because they have made some plays, and they have been better at times, at least forcing turnovers. But somebody got to take the blame, and it was Todd Haley when the offense was scoring points but you were losing. Was that fair? Not really. So it got to be Keith Butler now. It got to be the defensive coordinator now, especially if you let Andy Dalton without A.J. Green somehow beat you. Somehow beat you. The Bengals suck, guys. I can't respect them as opponents based on that roster and how they've been playing. So, yeah, if that's the case, if that happens, then, I would fire Keith Butler. I don't think it would happen, though. I don't think they're going to fire anybody midseason. But 0-4 would be pretty bad. I don't think anybody thought 0-2. I don't think anybody thought 0-3. I didn't think 0-3. 0-4, more than unacceptable. More than that. Now, anything else you guys got for me, I certainly will discuss here. Certainly, there are still you guys on this channel. There are still you guys watching this. There are still many fans out here. Normally, I get a lot more activity in this chat. I don't know if the time or the technical difficulties or what kind of screwed this, but regardless, I'm going to do more live chats. So if you don't hit this one, I'll try to promise one a week, especially when there's polarizing, controversial news like this. Ventura Variety, Haley got arrested. That was why he got the axe. I hear you. I mean, yeah, Haley had some off-the-field issues, and there was drinking rumors. There was the whole him getting pushed at Tequila Cowboy. I get it. I want to make this clear, Ventura and all Steeler Nation. I'm not defending Todd Haley. I'm not saying Todd Haley shouldn't have been fired at the time. I'm not saying Todd Haley should be here for life. I'm not defending Todd Haley's NFL life or his resume because he's been fired and hired a bunch of places. And there might be some nepotism there with his father that got him the job, and that was the rumors with Tomlin and him never got along, and he was only there because of that. Okay, he's gone. Point of it is, the offense, in terms of his actual work, was scoring points. Yes, they started slow a couple years ago, but they scored points even in that playoff game. They were scoring points. Yeah, there was talent, but they were scoring points. That's what he gets paid to do. And the offensive coordinators knew because of that. Keith Butler's been there for a while. Keith Butler's defense was not getting it done while Todd Haley was getting the axe. And he was still there. He is still there. So he would be that first guy to go, and I'm not defending Todd Haley, but I think Keith Butler should already be gone because the defense has already consistently not proven themselves, whereas at least the offense scored points. But I get there was a lot more involved with Todd Haley. I thought he was a great coach, got unfair treatment. Yeah, I mean, that kind of, I don't know if great coach, it might be a bit much, but the offense scored points, and I think he did get unfair treatment. He got blamed for everything that happened, whether it be Ben's interceptions, whether it be Ben's comments, whether it be any receiver dropping a pass, any running back that couldn't move the ball. It was all Todd Haley's fault, and yeah, they had a number one offense, okay? They didn't win a championship, but that's not because of the offense by itself. It's a team game. You could point to the defense there, who was led by who? Keith Butler, who's still there as the defensive coordinator. It doesn't add up that we have close to 11 first-rounders on defense. Yeah, it's close to. It's 10, but it's close to. Yet ranked 28th overall. Sounds like a coaching issue. Also, why was Mason Rudolph down the whole game in San Fran? I'm not sure where you're going there with Mason Rudolph. I mean, Mason Rudolph did look sluggish early on. Again, he's inexperienced. It was his first career NFL start. I know there was so much praise on him in training camp and the preseason, and rightfully so. He looked pretty damn good and legitimately won the job over Dobbs. I'd feel way less confident with Dobbs right now. And they spun the Dobbs trade and the fifth-round pick they got for Dobbs into Vantage, who they needed. It fills a position of need. Okay, I hear it. But he looked better as that game went on. Mason Rudolph looked good in the second half against Seattle. Looked a little bit worse in the first half against San Fran. You're on the road there, though, versus being at home. And then he looked better as the second half went on against San Francisco. There was the big plays. There was the touchdown to Johnson. He looked more poised in the pocket. He looked more confident. That's what you're going to get with an inexperienced quarterback without your Hall of Fame. This is why you'd rather have Ben. So I don't know why many of you are happy about Ben's injury. Mason Rudolph is going to go through hiccups. It's going to be a roller coaster ride with Mason Rudolph. It just will. But he looked better as that game went on. 45 points to get up to the Jags. Yeah, Blake Bortles led Jags. Remember that. And that was Keith Butler's defense. That was why they lost that playoff game. And Keith Butler's still there as the DC. Kind of crazy with this defense still having issues, even with all the moves they've made. So he's the first guy to go and probably already should go. And yeah, it is insane. With all those first-rounders, all those draft picks, all that talent on defense that is still there, they caused 5 turnovers and the offense didn't help them out, but they weren't getting it done the week earlier against Seattle. They let that offense go up and down, and they got embarrassed by Tom Brady and Belichick, which, okay, you can chalk it up to them, but the Steelers' defense overall hasn't been good enough, and even with the turnovers that were forced and the offense didn't score enough points, I get it, in the second half, the defense for the Steelers was not good at all in terms of allowing San Fran to drive up and down the field. They were allowing chunks of yards and allowing yards on the ground. Okay? Cam Hayward's not panicking, but what he said there in that clip that you can find, SteelersNow.com, Alan had a big article about it, and also Pittsburgh Sports Live there with the video and the interview, is the running game needs stopped. The Steelers' run defense needs to be better. I was watching the game with my grandfather, and he kept saying, you can't run against Pittsburgh, you can't run against Pittsburgh. Well, you can't normally, and you haven't been able to run against Pittsburgh historically. But you could against San Francisco. You could in that game. The Niners did. They ran up and down the field in that second half, so they were able to run against Pittsburgh, and that rush defense needs to be better. That's a major deal that rush defense has been so bad. So that's one thing to correct right there to make the team better. And I believe this team will be better and will win some games. I don't think this team is going to be a playoff team when you start 0-3. I don't think this team is going to win the division, even though I thought they were coming into the season. I picked them to do so. I'll admit it. You can find that show on the channel and on the site as well. It's just too hard now. And they might win some swing games. They might win some divisional games. They could beat Baltimore. They could beat Cleveland. But those teams have major leg ups, and even though Cleveland lost 2 already, 0-3 is just bad. Regardless of who you played, they had to beat the Niners. They should have beat the Niners. They didn't. So I think the season is kind of lost in terms of, I think the playoffs is very, very unlikely. But it's not a difficult conference. The Patriots, they're the Patriots, of course. The Chargers are going to be a contender, but they've already been losing. The Raiders don't even get to have AB, and then there's tons of question marks there. The Broncos aren't that good despite Flacco being there. They're very average. They're 0-3 as well. The Chiefs are maybe the best team in the conference behind the Patriots. In fact, they are, if not even better than the Patriots. That'll be the conversation. That was the AFC title game. That probably will be again with the MVP in Patrick Mahomes, who might win another one. That's how good the Chiefs are. They haven't missed a beat. And then we know about the Ravens and Browns, and the Bengals, of course, suck. The Jets, Bills, they're not ready yet. But so there's room. There is room for a wild card, even if they don't win the division, and Lamar Jackson leads the Ravens to another division title. Okay, they're the favorite right now. That should happen based on how things go. But after the Bengals, you see the Ravens. So you win that game, you now all of a sudden 2-3. That changes things, and they could win it. It wouldn't shock me. I've still never been high on Lamar Jackson, despite him doing it big this year, starting things off with a 5-touchdown passing game in Week 1. Peyton Manning-esque it was. But it's not out of the question they make the playoffs and get one of those wild cards just because of how down the conference is, even though I don't predict it. But if they do, it's not going to eventually lead them to the championship game. It's not going to eventually lead them to the Super Bowl. I don't believe this to be a 2005 wild card last seed season where they go run the table. It's unlikely. But I will say that even though I think this season won't be saved, at least in terms of your expectations, I don't mind the Fitzpatrick trade. The Vanett, you could argue, is riskier. I mind that more. And I'm not really saying I hate it, and because I know there were fans who wanted them to do something with the 5th-round pick they got from the Jags. They did. Okay. I don't know if you do it when your season basically is lost and you're 0-3. Maybe you keep that pick because here's why. I don't mind the Fitzpatrick trade because it's a first-round pick, and Fitzpatrick becomes your first-round pick next year in all intents and purposes. Okay? Fitzpatrick fills a position of need for the secondary. It would have been where you would draft anyway. You're not going to draft a quarterback next year because Mason Rudolph's your guy, even whether Ben comes back or not. He's your young guy to groom. You maybe would draft a running back depending on how Connor goes because, as I said on Twitter, and I believe this to be true, it's a great story. He's a very, very nice guy. I'm rooting for him even though I'm a WVU alum. But he needs to be better. And the offense is going to be killed until the running game can move. The running game has been awful this year. He's fumbled. It cost them that Niner game. It led to costing them that Niner game. He fumbled last year and cost them some games. And he also gets hurt all the time. So there's plenty to criticize James Conner for, even though many don't want to do it. But you're probably not drafting a running back in the first round. He's still been good enough. You're not going to draft a receiver. You've done that. You're not going to draft a linebacker. Just trade up for Devin Bush, who, yeah, they're going through some growing pains and hiccups, but he's still a lot of promise in him. Troy Polamalu had a sluggish rookie year. Calm down. Devin Bush will be fine. He still might even win Defensive Rookie of the Year with how this season goes. He could still turn it around. He's still showing some impact and actually 6th in terms of defensive players and tackles. So he's still giving you the stats, even though there are weaknesses in his game that are evident. So you're probably going to draft somebody with a secondary anyway, so it ends up being a first-rounder that ends up being Minkah Fitzpatrick. You don't get to pick the first round, but it ends up being him. You have him years on rookie control. You have him on a low-rent deal. You have him locked up for a few years. He's very, very young. He has a pedigree from being drafted in the first round by Miami, 11th overall. Success under Nick Saban in college. A couple national championships. He's been in big games. He has his mind right, seemingly. He wants to be here. That I don't mind much because it's a position of need and the first-round pick becomes your first-round pick next year. I get that. And it's a rookie deal and he's locked up. Vanett, though, is not locked up. He has one more year left in his rookie deal, and that's this season. Then you're going to need to pay him more to keep him. And based on what he's done in his career, you're not going to want to pay him that much. You'll probably go elsewhere. So you're basically giving up the fifth-round pick for nothing next year, whereas Fitzpatrick and Minkah Fitzpatrick move is more for the future than right now. Vanett is just for right now while you're 0-3. And you need those later round picks more when you're giving up your first round pick, even if he serves as that quasi first round pick for next year. So the Vanett trade is much, much riskier. I like that a lot less, even though it's a position of need, and it does need to help the young quarterback. I can make sense of the Minkah Fitzpatrick move, but this is an 0-3 team. The schedule gets easier. I wouldn't be shocked if they turn it around and squeak in the playoffs because of the landscape of the league, but I wouldn't count on it either. And get ready for the drama next year when Rudolph has an okay year. I think he'll have an okay year, but a typical rookie first-year quarterback type of year as a starter at least. And then Ben will want to come back, and some fans won't want it. Some fans will. It'll be a split locker room. I'm already excited for those shows. Going through the live chat as I round things out here, I did see some of you did actually hit this up as I kind of maybe gave up on you guys a little bit there. I usually get a lot more activity in this live chat when I do these, and I will do these at least once a week depending on the news, and I got a lot of other shows to take care of and a lot of to do here for this channel and my work here with the site and in media in general. But I try to do one of these for you despite the technical difficulties that hurt me here this evening. But I will digress, YouTube. And check these out here as I round things out. Four turnovers and still lost to them. It was actually 5 overall in the game. They forced 4 turnovers in the first half. Ended up with just 6 points off those 4 turnovers in the first half against the Niners. If you get even 1 touchdown, they win. And then 1 more in the second half. But the defense, despite the 5 overall turnovers, it masked them a little bit there. They still need to be much better. It's still on Keith Butler because, yes, the 5 turnovers, and they're finally forcing turnovers that they weren't the last couple of years. It's a big deal. But the defense allowed the Niners to run up and down, and I mean run up and down the field in that second half, and they bended and broke in that second half. So they forced turnovers, but then they just weren't good enough overall. Only way we make the playoffs is winning the AFC North, in my opinion. I hear you, Ventura, but here's the problem. I do think Baltimore is better. They've proven it so far. Lamar Jackson has 1 more year under his belt than Mason Rudolph. Even if he misses those short routes that he missed last year, he's actually now hitting them. And he's hitting the deep ball, which I think a big help to him is Hollywood Brown, Antonio Brown's cousin. Saw what he did a couple weeks ago. He can take the top off the defense, to say the least, and he's going to love torching this Steelers team. Maybe getting revenge for his cuz. That'll be interesting. He is already looking like an elite receiver in the making, and I know him also from WVU and seeing him at Oklahoma so often when he was playing in college. He's a rookie year, but he's already had an impact and helped them win a game. So Hollywood Brown's a big help to him in terms of a big play receiver that Lamar Jackson did not have last year when they won the division and made the playoffs. So I think the Ravens are still going to win this division. I'd be shocked if you go from 0-3 to beating them out for the division. The Browns are right there too, even though they've been humbled. They're still going to be a good team and a contender. I don't know. I mean, I think the wild card is possible because the Chargers have already lost despite being good. There's nobody from the East that's going to win it. The South is, I mean, after Andrew Luck retiring and the Colts being up in the air and the Texans being up in the air. I mean, a lot of these teams are just average teams. The Titans I don't buy. Jacksonville's bad. James Ramsey wants off the team. The Texans probably are my pick if I had to pick somebody, but it could go to the Colts and it wouldn't shock me. Whoever wins the South is going to be 9-7, and they always are. So there could be room for I think there is room for a wild card, and I don't see them winning the division because it's hard to see that at 0-3, but who knows? No one talks about this, but Mike Tomlin had more grit. They would have won a game. He has no emotions at all when his players screw up. Well, I mean, I kind of know what you're saying there. Yeah. I mean, he's a fiery guy, but he does kind of like doesn't. He's like Cam Hayward. I mean, this is what Cam Hayward said this. 0-3, but we're not panicking. They're not panicking after 0-3 start. You're a veteran team. You can't afford to panic, even though some fans want you to be fiery and not leave your house and throw things and know that you care. They do. I've been around them. They do. But they're being veterans who are trying to keep their composure and be even keel. Okay? That's Tomlin in a way as well. And I don't want to go into the AB and Bell thing, and he certainly could have had a tighter ship and let AB get out of control, but that might have happened anyway once he got his guaranteed money because he's a lunatic. But Tomlin's been mightily successful over his career. He's often hated by Steeler fans unjustly. He's not Belichick by any means, but a lot of wins, Super Bowl championship, couple appearances. Again, he's not Belichick, but there's been success there. And he doesn't have a lifetime job, and I'm sure that he'll probably walk away when this contract's up if he's not told to earlier. But they never fire coaches. The franchise does not fire coaches. They're not going to fire Tomlin. I don't have a problem with his personality. They're trying to be even keel, and they're trying not to freak out, and you shouldn't. Again, a lot on the Bills here. Yeah, the Bills, the Bills could be the other wild card. It wouldn't, okay. It could be. If I had to right now, based on the Steelers being 0-3 and what's going on with the Chargers and figuring the Chiefs are the division champs there and the Patriots are the division champs there and the Ravens division champs here, I would say the Browns and Bills probably are the two wild cards if I had to pick right now. But it's not like, yes, I think Josh Allen is maturing, is getting better, is showing he can impact games even on the ground. He is very elusive. He is, and you did it. He is a comparison to Big Ben. He is similar to Big Ben, and we're already seeing that. And we saw Ben's early career with a team around him. I don't think Josh Allen has the team around him that Big Ben had early in his career. And I don't necessarily love the Bills. Their running game has now been often injured. LaShawn McCoy's getting it done with the Chiefs. He's no longer on the Bills, and they lose a running back off an injury. The defense has allowed more yards than you'd like, but that's still a good team, and it's still a team that could snag a wild card, and it wouldn't shock me. But they got losses coming up because they're going to lose a lot of divisional games, at least to the Patriots, probably both times. They could split others, but I don't love the Bills. I don't hate the Bills. I'm middle of the road on the Bills, and they could get a wild card. It wouldn't shock me. But if the Steelers somehow could get that schedule turned around and get 2-3 with a win over the Bengals, who should be a lock win, and then somehow beat the Ravens, which could happen, already 2-3, and that could change things. So we'll see. Yeah, Dupree. Yeah, again, that definitely is another position of need, and I talked about this in past shows going into the season. It's about the pass rush. They did a lot. Devin Bush a big deal, and they did a lot for that defense. But the pass rush has been better this year than last year, but it's still mostly T.J. Watt. It can't just be him. It's been him causing sacks, him making plays, him finalizing the sack, him causing turnovers and finalizing the turnovers. It's been all T.J. Watt in many respects in terms of those linebackers, at least in the pass rush. And Tuitt's been good at times. Dupree, we thought you could see more from him in the preseason. We'll see still. There were many who expected a lot from him going into the year. That still, again, remains to be seen. Tuitt looked good, though, last week. I will say that. And Tuitt looked good against Seattle, too. Tuitt looked good against Seattle. That's the game. But it didn't matter. But they all need to be better. And the defense has to go. It has to be on Keith Butler if it doesn't improve. Can we let Dick Blow go for Butler? Yeah, again, Keith Butler has somehow been able to just walk around and had no. Everyone else has been the scapegoat for Keith Butler, who probably should have lost his job 2 years ago if it was me. And then you give me the AB question here. We almost went the whole thing with that one. Do you think AB has early signs of CTE? I hate this. I'm going to round this out with this because I'm not going to do a whole show on this. And yeah, Mark Barron's not getting it done, and that's very, very surprising, and he's been horrible, to say the least, and he needs to be better, and many thought he would be better, so that's another issue there defensively with the linebackers. But back to AB. AB's a nut job. AB's a lunatic. AB is a narcissist, and we have a therapist sharing us a wall here next door to us in this studio here. I'm sure you'd say the same thing. My uncle's a therapist, did say the same thing when I'm following the news with him sitting next to me. AB's a narcissist. He's a textbook. He's a lunatic. He cares about nobody but himself, and really I think he just wants to be famous more than play football now. He wants attention. He wants his money. He thinks of money as respect. If he's the best, you got to get the most money, which is never how things work. It's whose guys' contracts is when your contract's up and what's going on with the team and the salary cap. He doesn't care about any of that. He's very selfish. He thinks money is respect. He's a narcissist if ever there was one. He only wants attention more than anything, really. He wants infamy as much as fame, too. And all of this came out eventually after he got the money with the Steelers. Unlike Bell, I understood that more. I wouldn't group them together. Okay, Bell just wanted his money, didn't want to risk his body when he didn't have his money yet. It's a position that doesn't have a long shelf life. I get it. AB got money. The Steelers gave him his money, and then he acted worse afterwards, and you got to see the real AB. And yes, I can't say to be a doctor here and say that CTE is not part of it. I'd love to see his brain studied one day. When he passes away, they got to study that brain because it's freaking crazy if ever. I want to see that brain, and I want to get some analysis on that brain. I definitely do. But I would not, and I will not, blame this entire drama of AB over the past year where he's just mentally melted down team after team on CTE only. Yeah, there could be signs of CTE. Yes, that could be true. Maybe the perfect hit triggered it. Maybe it was before that. He's had a long football career. He got hit time and time again. And it could be the perfect hit that set it off. Sure. But I think we're seeing a lot more who the real AB is. I think he's just freaking crazy. I think he's just selfish. I think he's just a narcissist. I don't really think he's a good guy, honestly, and I've been around him. And I'm not going to blame the entire thing just on that hit. Okay, that's no excuse. I'm just not going to let it be an excuse. But, yeah, there's probably some CTE there as well. And well said, Mike, with all explanation points, capital letters. Thank you, Claude, because, yeah, I'm sure there's some CTE, but that just can't be it. Now, I'm going to close it out with this. I thought coming into the year they'd win the division. I thought they'd at least be a playoff team. I didn't think the offense would have these growing pains early on. Grant, I thought Ben would be there. And I thought the defense would be better. But none of that's been true. I've been wrong on all of that so far, and we're through 3 weeks. We'll see where I go. But the offense needs to be better. They need a running game. Connor deserves criticism. The defense hasn't been good enough. They haven't stopped anybody enough. They haven't stopped teams from driving up and down the field enough. They force turnovers, but then the offense doesn't capitalize. That needs to happen. Boswell hasn't been the problem. That's at least happened. But there's been less drama, too. But they're 0-3. They just haven't been good enough. The standard, as Tomlin has said, it's unacceptable. The standard has just not been met, and the standard is the standard of winning. And will the season be saved? The headline of the show? I think they still have an outside chance at a wild card. I really, really do at 0-3, and I'm not an optimistic guy. All my friends will tell me, people who followed me for a while, here, the Trib, PXI, wherever, I'm usually glass, half empty, or at least keeping it real with you guys. I'm not glass half full if it's not there. I don't just go glass half full just to do it. Okay, I usually keep it real. I'm usually the pessimist or getting said to be that because I keep it real so much. But with that said, the schedule gets easier. I think this team will get better. I think they're showing signs. They already should have won some of these games. They should have won 2 out of those 3. They didn't, I know. But I think the schedule will get easier. I think they will win those games. I think the landscape of the conference is just not that good. If you're giving me the Bills as their best competition for the second wild card, the Bills, the Browns right now, the Bills, the Browns, the Chargers, that's what you're looking at for a wild card right now. Maybe throw the Ravens in regardless of who wins the division. Do any of those teams terrify you? Those teams all have weaknesses. Those teams all have reasons why they won't win. And all those teams could be said to be worse than the Steelers coming into the year, so it doesn't I'm not too excited about any of those teams getting that wild card or any of those wild card spots. So with that said, the Steelers could get one. Not likely, but could. For the season to be saved, they have to crawl into the playoffs. Okay? I thought they would do more coming in. Didn't think championship, of course, but thought they would do more. I think now with Mason Rudolph, first-year starter, if he somehow crawls them into the playoffs, it'll create tons of controversy next year if Big Ben wants to come back. Even if they get close, I could see that just because those teams, again, aren't that good. But if they get close, I could see that controversy. So I don't think the season – I think it could be saved in that respect, but that's what would need to happen for it to be saved. And again, as I reiterated before, I don't mind to make a Fitzpatrick trade because that first-round pick becomes your pick next year. It's a position of need, and you have him locked up on a not a big deal, on a rookie deal. But Vanett is riskier. I hope that Austin takes over because Butler is trash. Yeah, Butler again. Keith Butler, he has to go. He would have been the guy to go a couple years ago if they weren't using Todd Haley as a scapegoat. They both really maybe could have left because I know Haley's stuff was more off the field. Keith Butler, really, if they lose to Cincinnati, I'd fire him right then and there. I wouldn't even let him fly back. I'd pull a Lane Kiffin, a Nick Saban on Lane Kiffin type of thing. We're sorry. Here's your papers. Get a new flight somewhere else because you can't get on this thing. You can't get on this plane. They did that to Lane Kiffin. I'd do that to Keith Butler because he should have been fired 2 years ago. But they won't do that midseason. That's just not the Steelers. And he will be blamed and will be the scapegoat this offseason. If they don't make the playoffs and the defense doesn't get better, he'll then be blamed, but he should have already been fired. This, though, has been another Steelers Live chat, and I expect more from you guys in the future. More chatters, usually get more, but regardless, we still had some, so we turned this thing around. Just like maybe the Steelers will turn their season around. How about that for putting a bow on this one? Make sure to follow up and hit up our family of networks, Pittsburgh Sports Now, Pittsburgh Hockey Now, Pittsburgh Soccer Now, and, of course, SteelersNow.com. Thanks to the sponsors back behind me, the signs behind me, Beaver County Auto. BeaverCountyAuto.com is their site. And also find this and all of our video content, pghsportslive.com, as well as hit us up on Facebook and Twitter. You can follow us on Twitter at PGH Sports Live on Twitter, at PGH Sports Live there on Twitter, as well as at PGH Steelers Now on Twitter, at PGH Steelers Now on Twitter, and myself at Mike Asti 11 on Twitter. Make sure to click subscribe, make it easier for us to get this content to you and to be notified of future live chats, future shows in general. When anything is up there, whether it be a player interview, a press conference, in-game content, post-game content, shows like this, whatever, click on the subscribe tab. It'll make it easier for us to get the content to you. And my dinner's now been delayed, so I kind of want to go have that. And that's all I got for this one here. But again, I'm going to try to promise more of these because they're still successful, even with this one being a little down from the other ones. But I'm going to blame the tech difficulties. They always just find me from college to now throughout my career. This, though, has been another Steelers Now, Steelers Live Chat, mic drop edition here. Has been here on Pittsburgh Sports Live, SteelersNow.com, PGHSportsLive.com. Go to Pittsburgh Sports Live on Facebook. Hit up the sponsors behind me. Find it all. And, man, they just got to beat Cincinnati. I'm not going to respect Cincinnati. No A.J. Green. Cincinnati sucks. Can't even get in the head realm of possibility of losing Cincinnati. But crazier things have happened. Stranger things have happened, too, for sure.